The good news is that everyone sees different and we all fit somewhere within the vision spectrum. My name's Angela and I'm a visually impaired designer. If you like this video, please subscribe below so you can receive notifications about future videos. Disabilities are a spectrum. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Hope you're all doing well. Today we're going to talk about how disabilities are a spectrum. First, I'll give you a couple of different examples of disabilities and how it fits within the spectrum and give you a good overview. And then we'll talk about how there's permanent, situational, and temporary situations where someone might be disabled. And then we'll go into definitions of what legally blind, and what visually impaired is considered. Alright, let's get into the video. I've probably touched on this subject in probably every video that I've recorded so far, but I wanted to make one video specifically just talking about how disabilities are a spectrum because it's such an important concept to understand. There's a huge misconception that disabilities are fairly black and white, meaning that everyone can fit into one or two or maybe three categories, where they have no difficulty with a certain impairment, or they're completely deaf, blind, or have to be in a wheelchair. The first example I'll give is someone with a mobility disability. Now, not everyone can either walk with ease or they're not in a wheelchair. There's lots of different people in the middle there of this spectrum where there's people who have to limp, there's people who use crutches, a walker, a cane. Maybe they have difficulty going up hills or stairs, but they're able to walk perfectly fine. Some people in wheelchairs can even use a wheelchair for a short amount of time and then be able to walk for a little bit when there's an issue with the infrastructure, like a couple of stairs, and it's just easier for them to get out, to go up or down the stairs, and then they can get back in their wheelchair. It totally just depends on the person. So there's a lot of different ways that mobility disability can be manifested. So it's important to realize that there's a spectrum and that not everyone fits into one box. The second example I'll give is people with hearing impairments. Not everyone fits in one of the two boxes of being able to hear everything or being completely deaf. There are people who have a little bit of hearing loss, or people who can wear a hearing aid to help them hear a little better, or there's people who can only hear certain frequencies or has a constant buzz in their ear, which makes it hard for them to hear certain sounds. So once again, hearing impairment has a wide range of ways that it can be manifested, and it's totally different for every person. So we don't want to assume that if someone says they have a hearing impairment that they're deaf and they can't hear anything at all. There are temporary conditions where people will have a disability for a short amount of time. So maybe someone has crutches because they broke their leg, and they're not always going to have that disability, but while they're using crutches, it's going to be a challenge for them, and they're going to have to learn how to adapt and do things differently. Another example would be when someone's pregnant and they're larger than normal, it becomes difficult for them to do things that they are able to do on a regular basis, like bend over or walk farther or reach over their belly, that kind of thing. And that would be considered a temporary disability because it inhibits what they're able to do on a daily basis. There are also situational conditions that make it difficult for you to do normal everyday things that you're trying to do. For example, maybe you're at a really loud concert and you can't hear the person next to you, and you definitely can't hear people down the row who are trying to communicate with you. Another situation would be someone who is night blind, and for them they only struggle with their vision when it's dark and in certain situations where the light doesn't work for them. In a future video, I'll be talking about inclusive design and talk more in depth about permanent, temporary, and situational conditions. And this will really help us look more into how having a disability that's a permanent one isn't the only situation where we can benefit from using principles of inclusive design or universal design, where things are accessible to people with disabilities, but they also have the potential to help a wider range of people and not just people with disabilities. So what I decided to do for my thesis project was to create a group of persona cards that would help designers better understand those with a visual impairment and help them understand conditions along the whole spectrum, or prevent some of the people on the vision spectrum from being able to use their design. So they might be able to find a better solution that will help a wider range of people. So this is how my project turned out. It's on a ring where you can have your persona cards on it and be able to take them off and use a couple when you're working on a certain project and cater it to what your specific needs are. And maybe you're doing it in a group, or if it's just you, then you can scatter them on a table and help you better understand. And I sorted my persona cards by permanent, temporary, and situational conditions that fit within the vision spectrum. So I really wanted to create a graphic that could help illustrate that disabilities are a spectrum. This graphic shows 100% white on the left side and 100% black on the right side. And then using a gradient and halftone technique, I created a dot pattern where from the white to the black, there's smaller dots and they get larger and larger as you get closer to the black side. This graphic shows all levels of vision and can help us understand how they work together as a whole. Something to keep in mind while we talk about this is vision is typically measured by visual acuity of central vision, meaning what someone can see straight in front of them. There are also measurements for peripheral vision measured in degrees. Let's now take a closer look at different parts of the vision spectrum. First, we will talk about what is considered perfect vision or fully sighted. Someone who has no struggles with their vision and everything is clear and in focus for them would have a visual acuity of 20/20. And this means an average or fully sighted person can see an object from 20 feet away, while you can also see an object from 20 feet away. We will now move to the right of the vision spectrum and talk about mild vision loss to total blindness in sections. The next part of the spectrum would be those who have a minor vision loss or low vision. This could range from occasional or minimal vision loss to someone who struggles to see clearly sometimes, but can do daily tasks with the aids of glasses or contacts. Typically, someone who has low vision would have better than 20/70 visual acuity. The next section is visual impairment. And visually impaired is an umbrella term for people with approximately a visual acuity of 20/70 or worse in their better seeing eye with correction. A visual acuity of 20/70 means if an average or fully sighted person can see an object from 20 feet away, they can see the same object from 70 feet away. It is a decreased ability to see to a degree that causes problems not fixable by usual means, such as glasses. It may cause people difficulties with normal daily activities. This means people who are blind are always considered visually impaired, but people who are visually impaired are not always considered blind. Next, we will talk about being legally blind. Legally blind is an official term used by the government to decide if someone qualifies for disability benefits and services. This means people who are totally blind are also considered legally blind, but people who are legally blind are not always totally blind. Legally blind is when a person's best corrected visual acuity or central vision in their better seeing eye is 20/200 or worse. Or legally blind is when their visual field or peripheral vision is limited to only 20 degrees or less. A visual acuity of 20/200 means if an average or fully sighted person can see an object from 20 feet away, they can see the same object from 200 feet away. The last section of the spectrum is total blindness. This is a small amount of people who can't see anything at all, and they don't often have any light perception. This means that the majority of people who are blind have some but limited vision. This could include some light perception, the ability to recognize shapes, and possibly even color. This could include some light perception, the ability to recognize shapes, and possibly even color. So please don't make the assumption that all people who are blind live in complete darkness and recognize that everyone sees differently. Another visual impairment we haven't touched on yet is color blindness. Color blindness affects approximately 1 in 12 men, or 8%, and 1 in 200 women in the world. This is where someone can only see certain colors or has a hard time distinguishing between some colors. Someone with color blindness can fit anywhere on the vision spectrum from fully sighted to legally blind. I will definitely be covering color blindness in its own dedicated video in the near future. It is no secret that this is a complicated topic, but the good news is that everyone sees different and we all fit somewhere within the vision spectrum, so we can all try to help each other understand and relate. Well, that's everything for today. I hope you found this video helpful and that you were able to learn something. If you have any comments or suggestions for future videos, comment below and I'll take a look at those. I hope you guys all have a great day. Bye!